tools or the resources the
Yeah.
new black man has to be well versed in order to make or in order to be able to decipher whether someone is for or against the embetterment of black people as a whole.
Okay, well, the first one I would say, and this is like a super controversial one because the internet and the media and all these different things have kind of spoiled the image of the person who created this first one that I'm about to name. He's been so blacklisted, and and everybody that thinks they know anything about anything will say that this guy was like one of the worst guys, but unfortunately he was actually one of the greatest guys. And there's also uh, information that may suggest that he might have actually been a brother. And this is Alexander Hamilton.
Okay. So Alexander Hamilton, who was born in St. Kitts in 1750s. I went and watched the Hamilton play
Cool.
back in the day in Chicago. Shout out to my family for making that happen. Yeah, so Alexander Hamilton, who was one of the forefathers, right, of America.
Yeah, he's the everything that was all the sound logic that you see in anything, the way that the government is run is his ideas. And also all of the ideas that are attributable to both sides of the political spectrum, whether it is Karl Marx or whether it is Adam Smith or John Locke or any of these guys, they're all just plagiarizing and bastardizing, because they're evil, his ideology. So he wrote a few things that not necessarily are the ones I'm naming now, which is like his paper on manufacturing, which is really where they get all their ideas. Like Karl Marx's criticism of capitalism is based on Alexander Hamilton. So the only thing good about Karl Marx actually comes from Alexander Hamilton. So that if you just study Alexander Hamilton, you don't need to study Karl Marx, because Karl Marx has a lot of there's a Trojan horse in Karl Marx. If you take on his doctrine, you're taking on some of the dominant society's evil side of their doctrines as well. They care for Karl Marx. He studied in England, in England, the same place where John Locke studied or Adam Smith studied. So these guys they act like they're enemies, but they're friends. There's no difference. They're just like Democrats and Republicans. There's no difference between them. But Alexander Hamilton, the one that they joined themselves to murder, is the one that we need to be looking at. And he has a specific one that I'm talking about, especially because we're talking about Pan-Africanism, which in a lot of ways depends on a unity of Africa that would have the power to unify with Jamaica and Haiti and Brazil and all these different places, right? Trinidad. So none of that will be possible without a full grasp of the Federalist Papers, because
okay, so the Federalist Papers are documents created by Alexander.
There are a bunch of editorials that were in like a newspaper magazines at the time that he was trying to convince the American society that they needed to go further than just a confederacy, that they needed to go to like a nation state republic.
Okay.
But the reason why it's so important is because he was in there when he lays out perfectly how the trials and tribulations of staying in a confederacy, which is similar to what the African society is right now, a loose association of nations, how dangerous that is to be in that situation. And he describes it by showing how Europe was in a state of perpetual war for hundreds and hundreds of years, and why England over there on the island was able to kind of be inoculated from some of the trials and tribulations that the mainland Europe was going through, right? So he goes very clearly through that the dangers of not unifying within the mainland. Mm-hmm. And he describes also one of the biggest things is like why a big, powerful manufacture capital like New York City or Pennsylvania, why should they join with some of these other, slave backwards swamp states, right, in the South, right? Why should they join together? Because they're super wealthy. Why don't they just work on their own? And this is what you have to understand, because in Africa, we're going to have the same argument. People are going to say, like, now that Rwanda is doing well because they're manufacturing their own gold or whatever, or you have Nigeria, that's, the beacon. Why should they join with Togo? Because they can do it on their own. But what he very clearly explains is that that's impossible. If you want to live a sovereign life, then you're going to have to be manipulated. You're going to be manipulated by outside powers, and the people around you are going to have a choice to make. Some of them are going to be intimidated by you and try to join with you. So you'll end up with some sort of coalition where you have, like, Nigeria joins with Cameroon and whatever against whoever else, right? And then you're going to have you set up a society of perpetual war, right? Because you're leaving gaps for bad actors to come and manipulate, right? So it's the only way for them to all be safe is to join together, completely to join together. And he makes a very thorough argument over several papers as to why it is absolutely necessary for the unification, and how a sovereign nation state is impossible to conquer, and this is why England was not able to conquer America. England's army was much better than America's army when they fought, much better.
Yeah.
England had the super navy. America didn't. They had John Revere, you know what I mean, or Paul Revere or whatever, right? The British are coming.
Right.
So when you have that unity, and when you're willing to fight and die for your place, they cannot get you, right? And that's why you even find some of those times you have these small little countries that can fight guerrilla wars forever and you can't conquer them. Places like Afghanistan, it takes how many empires have tried to conquer them.
Very interesting, because what comes to mind today for the new black man is, even though he is a fictitious character, he has a villain who had so much depth in his way of thinking, and in his love for his people. Eric Killmonger from the Black Panther. We see a broken man who wants to avenge not only his father's death, but wants to avenge his ancestors' death, his ancestors' enslavement, and wants to not only wants to overthrow any country who contributed in slavery, any country who contributed in the destruction of the continent of Africa, of people who look like him, yet had to go and destroy a country, the birthplace of his father, to be able to gain the access and the knowledge and the resources to then fulfill his mission, which was overthrowing government of the majority, to finally let black people rule the world. So it's interesting that so is this, with this comparison, or this character, this fictitious character, is this what is this part of what the new black man has to be?
Yes, the independent streak is definitely part of it, right? It's I can't speak too much on the movie because I don't really remember it that well, but from what I remember, his modus operandus was something that is more closely linked to what I'm describing, than what they were doing in Wakanda. Yeah, he was more.
So let me ask this. Let me get this out of the way right now, because we are talking about the new black man. Is the new black man looking to use violence?
No.
Okay.
He's making, basically what he's trying to do is he's trying to do what France did in the Renaissance period.
Okay.
So what they did is their scientific advancements were so superior to the oligarchy that the oligarchy just couldn't get them. So it's not that they were, sending out the soldiers. That's the oligarchy's thing. That's their thing. What you have to be able to do is just be more intelligent to them, be more inventive than them, right? So that if they do want to bring some ruckus to you, you can get together and repel them with whatever way, right? The concepts that you'll be able to create, the technologies that you'll be able to create, will be able to repel them. But it's not necessarily that you want that you're going to become barbaric as they are, but you'll have knowledge of principles. And someone that has a scientific understanding versus the brute is never going to win. So that's the thing. It's like we can have a big stick and what's that thing? Even though Teddy Roosevelt is a demon, but walk soft with a big stick.
Yeah.
So that's the move. That's the move, is to have the intellect that can conquer the brute's force.
All right. So we talked about the Federalist Papers. How many papers are there? I believe.
Okay, so the Federalist Paper, there's a bunch of them, but I'm saying like the first 13, I think maybe 18, all the ones written by Alexander Hamilton. I also have that in the description box. I have the first one there on the liver box recording, right? So there's the audio book. So you can start on that first one and just go through them all. But especially the ones, John Jay has some good ones as well, but the ones that Alexander Hamilton wrote are really crucial. Like if you're thinking about Pan-Africanism, if you're thinking about African Union, whether you're on the continent or whether you're here in North America, you need to be very familiar with that, because these are principles. These are actually principles of governance, right? So we need to have them memorized. You need to really have a real strong grasp on all the concepts within them, so that we can innovate on them. But you really have to get the fundamentals down, So that means sleeping with the audio book going if you have to, But you really have to be able to commit the concepts to memory.
All right. So the Federalist Papers 1 through 13, mostly written by the ones that are written by Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah, his are the ones that really have the meat in them. They tell you why it's necessary to join. It talks about how the individual nations relate to each other. It talks about why it's necessary, the benefits, and what is the consequences if you do not, which is more important. It really goes very deep into the consequences of not doing it, and how those powers can manipulate you and separate you, right?